The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.
With so many people living longer, the fear of outliving your money becomes a reality for many of us. Will I be a financial burden? Will I outlive my money? How will I be remembered? My name is Neil Himmelstein, president of Main Street Planning Group. Please contact me by visiting mainstreetplanninggroup.com. That's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. I will introduce you to strategies that will guarantee you will not outlive your money, that can guarantee you will not be a burden on your loved ones. Through a collaborative approach, we will uncover solutions that offer tax-efficient strategies, lifetime income, and legacy planning, choice, organization, direction, and education. That is the code we stand behind. Contact mainstreetplanninggroup.com, that's mainstreetplanninggroup.com, or call 631-647-4694. And listen to me every Friday at 3 p.m. as I host the Main Street Code for Financial Success, right here on 103.9 LI News Radio. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein, and we talk about choice, organization, direction, and education. That's what our code is. And we help hundreds of representatives across the United States with their financial needs regarding life insurance, long-term care insurance, disability, and annuities, and income for life, guaranteed income for life with annuities and life insurance and different factors. And if you've listened to my show before, you know I'm deeply passionate about long-term care planning from a personal level and a professional level. It is one of my biggest passions. I just did a show last week with the producer here, and we're so fortunate today to have Congressman Tom Suozzi with us, who shares in my passion for the interest of this crisis that we have with long-term care. And just as a preface to introducing you to Tom, we really have a crisis with the elderly today. The statistics show that it's growing because our lives are living longer and we need more care. And we need care inside the home, and we need care in nursing homes. But the idea is to not go to the bad place, is to stay home as long as we can and to preserve our lifestyle and to make sure we don't run out of money. And the largest insurer for long-term care in this country is the government, which is Medicaid. And it's a big drain on the budget. And to qualify for Medicaid, and I'm sure Tom will go into it, you need to basically impoverish yourself to receive these benefits. So without proper planning, you need to impoverish yourself to get the benefits of having somebody come in your home, and so you can live a long and happy and prosperous life, or have relatives that will come and take care of you, which may be burdensome to them with them and their family. So I'm going to introduce you now to Congressman Tom Suozzi, and he's also very passionate on the governmental side and has a bill to Washington called the WISH Act. But prior to you talking about the bill, Tom, can you briefly go over your little history about long-term care?
Well, Neil, thanks so much for having me on the show today, and I'm excited that you're working so hard on this important topic that is so important to so many families. Yeah, my personal story is that I grew up in a house. All four of my grandparents lived in my house growing up, and three of them were very sick. And we were all caregivers for my grandparents. My mother, who was a former operating room nurse at the Glen Cove Community Hospital, really got the brunt of it. But, I was taking my grandmother to the bathroom when I was a teenager.
Wow.
And, this is a big part of our lives growing up. It was normal for us. Mm-hmm. Well, my parents didn't want to be a burden on us the way, have the same experience that they had taking care of their parents. So they made a point of getting long-term care insurance. And my dad lived till he was 95. He died 2 weeks before my election to Congress in 2016. He died at home. My mother was making spaghetti sauce on the oven when I came over after church, and he was there. He died there in a chair. You could smell the sauce in the background. But he had long-term care assistance near the end of his life. And my mom had long-term care insurance. She died less than a year later, at 93 years old. So this is something I'm very, very personally aware of. It's always been a big part of my life, is understanding senior citizens, elderly people, what it's like to grow old, how it's a normal, natural thing. But a lot of folks don't plan for it. Long-term care insurance, which my parents were able to get, is simply not affordable for most people today. It's just too expensive. A lot of the insurance companies, they set up these long-term care insurance programs. They lost a lot of money because people lived longer than they thought they would. So it cost them a lot more money. They lost a lot of money. So now to buy a long-term care insurance policy, there are not many available. You usually have to group it with your life insurance policy, but it's very expensive. So I've been thinking about, what can we do to address this very real problem? I mean, there's 10,000 new senior citizens every day in America. 10,000 people turn 65 every day, all the baby boomers. So this is going to be going on for another 6 or 7 years. That we will be having 10,000 new senior citizens every day.
Wow.
People are living longer.
Right.
There are less people to take care of their parents as there used to be because people move away. People move to new towns, because of air traffic and communications, people changing jobs. People don't live in the same towns that they grew up in anymore. So there's less people available to take care of senior citizens, and there's a lot more senior citizens than there used to be. So we've got a storm coming in our country where, you're going to have a lot of people that are growing old, that need care, that can't afford to get long-term care insurance. They're going to spend all their money, what in some cases very little money they have, getting taken care of, and then they're going to be destitute. Then they could be homeless, they could be hungry, they could be cold, whatever it may be. And then they'll end up going into a government-funded Medicaid nursing home, and the system will break. There's not enough beds, and there's not enough money. So
right.
We've really got to get our arms around this issue.
Right. And I'm so excited that you have a passion for long-term care and the industry. And the industry is flawed, and to some extent the government is flawed in addressing the problem. And I think the biggest issue, and one that you're trying to address, and I'm trying to address the same thing, is I think we need some more public-private partnerships in a sense of working with the insurance companies and the government in coming up with solutions. I don't like to talk about long-term care insurance. I like to talk about long-term care planning. It's not always an insurance plan. Sometimes it's legal, sometimes it's insurance, sometimes it's a combination. Sometimes you don't need to fully insure. Sometimes you don't need to have 5% compounding unlimited interest, which is what a lot of the carriers did, which was the actuaries never counted on the fact that people would be spending way more than what the policy cost. So I think the real expense of long-term care is not the cost of the policy necessarily, it's the cost of needing that care and what those costs really represent. And I just wanted to say that. And, in the history of New York, and I do want to get into the WISH Act and spend a lot of time on it, but in the history of New York was one of the first states in the country to start something called a New York State Partnership for Long-Term Care. So I think the infrastructure was built for the private-public relationship, but it was flawed, and I think together we can fix a lot of these flaws, but the infrastructure was there, and it's no longer there. So that's why I'm really excited to be talking to you, because I want to rekindle that relationship, and I know you have been on a national level, and I know you deeply care about New Yorkers on a New York level, and I want to keep that conversation going, because I think it's so important that together we come up with solutions, and I'm really happy that you have the WISH Act here.
My proposal is a public-private partnership, and the idea is that we need to have the federal government to try and create an insurance program for catastrophic care. Not everybody's going to need catastrophic care, but if you do, you're not going to have enough money to pay for it.
Right.
And so, not everybody's going to need it, though. Catastrophic care we define as being based upon your income. If you're in the lower 25% of income earners, low 20% of income earners, you'll have to take care of yourself for a year. If you're in the lower 40%, you'll have to take care of yourself for 2 years, and onwards up till, if you're a wealthy person, you have to take care of yourself for 5 years. But the idea is that how can you take care of yourself? Well, you could get your family to do it. You could pay for it with your own money, or you could buy a long-term care insurance policy to take care of you for that period of time. But wait, long-term care is too expensive. But what I'm suggesting is that we create a federal program where you take 0.3% of someone's wages that they have to pay, and their employer has to pay 0.3% of their wages, into a federal program where catastrophic care, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, beyond those periods, will be picked up with a stipend that you get from the federal government. And that money can be used to pay for your long-term care beyond the 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 year that you're responsible for taking care of it yourself. Excellent. So by picking up the catastrophic care, it takes the burden off of the insurance companies so that they start getting competitive with each other to create affordable products to provide for long-term care insurance so that people can actually afford to buy a policy to take care of themselves for that beginning period.
That's great. Hey, Tom, we have to go to break, and we're going to be back in just a minute. You're listening to the Main Street Code for Financial Success, and I have Congressman Tom Suozzi with me, and we're talking about long-term care. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Main Street Code for Financial Success. I'm your host, Neil Himmelstein. I can be reached at 631-647-4694, or you can visit me on my website at mainstreetplanninggroup.com. We are here with Congressman Tom Suozzi. Tom Suozzi we're talking about long-term care planning. I don't like to say insurance. Insurance is a big factor. The public with Medicaid is a big factor, actually the biggest factor right now. One of the things that you may or may not know about Tom Suozzi is he was a trained attorney and CPA and has given 25 years of public service to this great country of ours, to the state of New York, to Glen Cove, and he cares about people. And that's why this is such a passionate subject for him. And if you heard us before the break, he was talking about his parents and how his mother and father had a long-term care policy which protected them financially and alleviated him to do his thing and do his job. He had to take care of his own mother and your grandmother and take her to the bathroom. I said one of the defining moments in my lifetime, and I didn't tell you this, but is my father, who was a veterinarian, very successtional, had disintegrated discs in his neck and back. And to the point where he was paralyzed just about. He outlived my mother, which we didn't expect. My mother died taking care of him. He was financially did okay, but one of the defining moments was, and he had some help in the house, and we don't want to get into that, but when I had to change his diaper, and he looked at me and I looked at him. This was my God. This was the guy that I looked up to my whole life, who was a great athlete, semi-pro soccer player, great tennis player, veterinarian, brilliant, bought stocks, sold stocks till he was 85 years old. I mean, amazing guy. And I changed his diaper. And to see his looking at me and me looking at him, and the difference between, I can't tell you how he felt or how I felt about that one moment in my life that I never want to have that happen to people.
Well, I had the same experience taking care of my dad, and even though he had long-term care, I was still lived in the same town in Glen Cove and was over the house all the time. I paid all my parents' bills, and my sister, when my mother was dying, my sister actually moved down from Boston to come live with her.
Wow.
For the last 3 months of her life.
Wow.
And that was with long-term care. And the bottom line is, this is a normal part of life. I mean, this is, it's okay that people get old and people are going to die, and you got to do your living wills, your do not resuscitate orders. You got to put your finances in order. But you have to be thinking about this stuff ahead of time and not be afraid to talk about getting old and getting frail and dying, and preparing for it in a way that's not going to be a big crisis for everybody as the end comes.
Right.
And for too many people, it's a lot of suffering and a lot of turmoil because they haven't thought about it in advance. And a lot of people go broke, and a lot of people end up in nursing homes. They don't want to live in a nursing home, but nobody's thought it through, and it's too expensive.
Right.
And quite frankly, the system's not built for it. The system's going to go broke, and it's going to. I think most people would rather age as long as possible in their own home.
Right.
The problem is the money.
It always is. Outliving your money is the biggest issue that people have. But I think the earlier you plan, when you're healthy and young, the better off you are. And I don't think that plans are that expensive as you're saying. The expense is at the other end if you don't plan. I think sometimes when you're even successful, reallocating some of your assets to prepare for this eventuality is so important, whether it's in a combination with a life insurance plan, like you mentioned, like a hybrid type of plan, or a standalone plan. Just having somebody, like that's what we do at Main Street Planning Group. We don't want you to have to sell all your assets to take care of your long-term care, particularly get rid of your IRAs and 401ks where you're going to be taxed and you need long-term care services. That's your retirement, that's your life. So a lot of planning goes into it. It's not just about diversifying your assets with what stocks you have. It's diversifying your tax classes, and it's diversifying your protection to make sure that you take care of the what-ifs. And,
you're talking about people that are successful, well-educated people. I mean, 60% of Americans do not graduate from college.
Right.
And not everybody, the average wage in America is below $50,000 a year. So, there certainly there are people that are successful people that have an IRA, that have a savings account, that have a stocks, that can plan for this and kind of figure out a way to plan for this if they so choose. And they should choose to do that. It's the right thing to do. It's the smart thing to do. It's the responsible thing to do for you and your family. But there are other people who just, they can't possibly put away the money to save for these type of plans.
Right.
You just need to figure out a plan that, a way that helps all people. I mean, the minimum wage in America is $7.25 an hour. As hard as that is to believe. In New York, it's going to 15. But let's say you make $10 an hour. If you make $10 an hour and you work 40 hours a week and you work 50 weeks a year, that's only $20,000 a year. Let's say it's $15 an hour. You work 40 hours a week, you work 50 weeks a year. That's $30,000 a year. Don't tell me you're going to, buy health insurance. You're going to get a place to live. You're going to educate your kids, and you're going to retire one day without being scared. I don't think so.
Right.
So we got to, say you're making $50,000 a year.
Right.
Health insurance, your house.
Yeah.
You educate your kids, save for retirement. It's not easy.
No.
And and the country's very different. I've been talking a lot about the state and local tax deduction. Oh, I don't want to go off topic, but I mean,
that's okay.
If somebody makes $150,000 here in New York State, in my district, in Long Island and Queens, you're making $150,000. You're okay. You're solidly middle class. In other parts of the country, $150,000 a year in Oklahoma, you're living on top of the world.
Right.
In a country club, in a gated community, you got granite countertops and an in-home movie theater.
Right.
I mean, same thing in Iowa or North Dakota.
No, we definitely have issues.
They don't appreciate how we've been hit so hard with the state and local tax deduction cap. That's my biggest fight in Congress right now.
Right, I know that.
Reinstatement of the state and local tax deduction.
And that's huge. And you're about the people, and that's what I love about you. I mean, you're about the people. I mean, people are so phased today with politics, and they think it's about one party, another party. I don't like to get into it. I mean, we could talk about it forever, but at the end of the day, it's about the people.
That's what it's about. It's about trying to make people's lives better. There's no reason to be in politics unless you're committed to trying to actually help people. People are sick of the finger pointing. They're sick of the back and forth.
Absolutely.
They just want to know, what are you doing to help make my life a little bit better?
Well, I think that's huge.
That's what we need to be focused on doing.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Well, I'm really appreciative that you're taking on this issue of long-term care. And I have to say that he is leading the country in this fight. Leading the country with a bill that yes, there's a bill in Congress to increase Medicaid. I wanted to ask you, what percentage, I think it's like 7% or something of the federal budget goes towards Medicaid. What percentage of the state funds go towards Medicaid? I don't know if my number is correct.
It's probably the largest single expenditure in the state. The two biggest expenditures for the state of New York has a $200 billion budget. The two largest expenditures are state aid for schools.
Right.
The more state aid there is, the lower the property taxes will be, the local share. But we got, as you know, on Long Island, a humongous property tax burden.
Yep.
Most of New York State has it, New Jersey as well. But state aid is number one for schools, and number two is Medicaid.
Right.
And we spend in New York State 2.5 times the cost of the national average on Medicaid. So that's a whole nother topic as to what we can do to continue to provide help for people to try and help people in desperate circumstances, but run these programs a lot better and a lot more efficiently to eliminate waste, fraud, and abuse. But listen, we got a lot of work to do, Neil.
Yep. We don't have much time, but how does someone get Medicaid? It's not Medicare.
Yeah, Medicare is for senior citizens age over 65. Medicaid is for people that are low-income people, or people that are completely disabled, or blind or disabled, or people that are the biggest expenditure of Medicaid is nursing home care for people, right. Long-term care for people, nursing home care when they are spent down all their assets, when they're more or less destitute, and their spouse or their children refuse to take care of them, which is kind of a legal construct. A lot of people set up these things to say, I'm not going to take care of my spouse, I'm not going to take care of my parents. It's almost like a legalized fraud,
right?
That we're encouraging in New York State to say, I'm not going to take care of my parents, I'm not going to take care of my spouse. Right. So then people shift all their assets over to their spouse or their children, put them in trusts and things like that. It's a terrible system. It encourages people to really just manipulate the system.
Gotcha. Well, we're running out of time for today's show, but thank you so much, Representative Suozzi. You're listening to Main Street Code for Financial Success. I can be reached at 631-647-4694. My name is Neil Himmelstein, and you can visit me on my website at mainstreetplanninggroup.com. Thank you so much.
The views and opinions expressed on this program are not necessarily those of this station, JVC Broadcasting Management, or its sponsors.